Hello, everybody. This is our first meeting after the new year. So, first of all, my best wishes for the new year, strong health, happiness, and everything the best. Topic of the day, as you can see, is the East European Shepherd Dog, or VEO. This is an abbreviation of the Russian name, Восточно-европейская овчарка, so VEO. I'm going to introduce you to the story of this breed and its development. But like usually, I will start with the tools I need for the better explanation and deeper understanding of the standard provisions. That's why I will use the model approach, which includes two models, biomechanical model of the dogs and the harmonic model of the dogs. These models are resulted by long years researches done by me during 24 years from 1963 to 1987, and based on the specifics of the Soviet breeding strategy. According to that strategy, the only breeding commission of each breed club was in charge of breeding plan a year. And since 1963, during almost 30 years, I have been chairman of that commission, first in Doberman Club and later on in Schnauzer Club. In some periods, that plan included per year about 300 to 400 brood bitches. Statistics was really huge. So all hypotheses appeared during breeding process were checked for trustfulness. Biomechanical model of the dog is the integrity of postulates, as well as harmonic model of the dogs is the integrity of harmonious proportions. Later on, I have defended the doctoral dissertation in biology named Dog Conformation Improvement through Biomechanical Model of the Dogs. So the previous hypothesis became afterwards status of scientifically proven facts. Therefore, you can fully trust them and use in your practice. Both biomechanical model and harmonic model are of practical value. Judges can find their universal reference points, which help them to increase the objectivity of their assessment. As well, breeders can find the selective algorithm for acceleration of the breeding progress. Now, about biomechanical model. Instead of the picture you see in front of you, you will see the same picture with a skeleton and not only. This is skeleton of this dog. And now we can see the details of the biomechanical model, lines and some angles. So this is the picture. The first postulate of the biomechanical model is the 2:1:1 ratio between anatomical divisions of the spinal column, where 2 units fall on the thoracic part of the spine or actual back. 1 unit falls on the lumbar part of the spine or loin. And last 1 unit falls on the sacrum or rump, which is the upper part of croup. The second postulate is 90 degrees angle by the axis of the pendulum. What does it mean? Look at two blue lines. First oblique line, which is along the shoulder blade median line, and the second one which connects the hips and the iliac tuber. In the point of intersection, it is created the angle. I will call this angle quite conditionally pendulum, which is not really pendulum, but it is more convenient to me to use this term. And the angle is 90 degrees. This is the second postulate. The third one is the principle of two horizontals. In front of you, this is the drawing where you can find two horizontal lines. First one connects the shoulder joint or humeral scapula and hip joint. The second one connects the elbow joint and knee joint. Next one will be the postulate of two verticals. The principle of two verticals is the next one. You can see elbow joint is under the top of withers, and knee joint is under the tail set. There is one more picture belonging to the same postulate. I will ask now to demonstrate it. Катюш, пожалуйста, картинку, где локоть с коленом соединены, и вдоль линии верха есть наклонная линия. Нет, следующую. Да. Okay. This is illustration which belongs to the previous postulate, and I will give comments later on. Next postulate is the principle which is illustrated by picture. You can see two horizontal lines. The upper line connects the sternum and the end of buttock, which defines the length of the body. I emphasize sternum, but not joint. Otherwise, we will lose part of chest in front of humeral scapula, which is not correct. And the lowest red line, horizontal one, connects two limbs, front and rear. And dog should be put in correct zootechnical stance, which means that the forelegs should be moved deeply under the body, and the rear limbs should be placed behind to the vertical rear pasta. According to this postulate, length of the body and the distance between fore limbs and higher limbs are equal. Now I will give briefly comments to each postulate, even it is not necessary, because as you know, postulate is the statement which doesn't need to be proved. Anyway, I will give some comments. So, the first postulate, 2, 1, 1. If the dog is built according to this ratio, then it is confirmed that the top line will be strong, the chest will be deep, and front and rear angulations will be correct and in balance in the first approximation, as well as in first approximation, format of the dog will be provided. What does it mean when I am saying format? This is the ratio between length of the body and height at width. Multiply 100. So it is really very important postulate, which is number one, not only because of the order, but because of its value. You can understand that according to this proportion, back should be relatively long, loin should be relatively short, and the sacrum should be of the same length as the loin. Why is it important? Because actual back or thoracic part of the spine is the upper part of the rib cage. So upper part of the chest. And if the back is longer, then the chest is also long. It was proven that length of the chest leads to depth of the chest. So both dimensions, length and depth, are on maximum at the physiological limits. We don't order too wide chest because width of the chest is normally in cross-section. According to the cross-section, when it is like longitudinal section of the egg, oval shaped. And if it is too rounded, then it will spoil the correct positions of the shoulder blade in the upper arm, and finally spoil the translational movement of the forelegs. So we don't order the chest to be too wide, should be moderately wide according to the oval cross section. That's why the capacity or volume of the chest is mostly provided by these two dimensions, length and depth. And this is important because it provides the best conditions for the developments of the lung, heart, and general blood vessels. This is one point of view according to which we understand how important is the length of the actual back. On the other hand, when we consider length of the loin, we can understand, we can remember the function of the loin when dog is moving. Loin, when dog is moving, is like a spring. It transmits motive thrusts from the rear to the front. Short loin, oscillations will have not a big amplitude. And this oscillation will be transmitted to the back part of the back, which is mobile support, because in the last part of the back, thoracic part is not supported by the breastbone. And that's why in this part, back is vulnerable. So, but oscillation of the loin, of the short loin, amplitude is not a big one. So the same oscillation amplitude will be transmitted to the back, and it will not damage so much because of this small amplitude, this part of the back. But if the loin in length is increasing, its amplitude is increasing also, and the same amplitude which is increased is transmitted to the back. And in this case, back will be involved in this process of the big oscillations with a big amplitude. And with the age and loading, it will be damaged. So, very easy to understand why short loin is important and why long loin is the cause of the soft back in the future with the age and loading. Moreover, short loin transmits the motive thrusts in a short time. When its length is increasing, time of transmission is increasing as well. And then phases of the fore limbs and hind limbs could be violated, and instead of antiphasis movement, they could move with a different phases, which leads finally to the pacing. So long loin is one of the reasons of the pacing. It could be considered from the different point of view, because long loin leads to the wobbling of the croup, to the side rolling, and the wobbling of the croup or side rolling is also a way to the pacing. So from each point of view, it is easy to understand that the loin should be short. So finally, relatively long back. Relatively, what does it mean? Actual back relative the whole top line. It is its half. It is a quarter of the top line. It is a quarter of the top line. In the framework of the biomechanical approach, this statement, this ratio could not be proved, but it will be done later on when we will consider the harmonic model of the dogs. So, next postulate is 90 degrees by the axis of the pendulum. In this case, these lines provide the preconditions for the balanced movement. Balanced movement includes equality of the front and the rear strides. Next postulate is postulate of two horizontal lines. Principle of two horizontal lines. When dog is moving, trotting, these lines are oscillating contrary, in antiphase, which means that the hip is going up so much as low is going the knee joint. That's why they compensate oscillations of each other. And the disturbances arising from the jumping and falling do not change the horizontal position of the spinal column, because these disturbances are softened on this level because of the mutual oscillations. The horizontal position of the spinal column is important because of the transmission of the motive thrusts from the rear to the front. These motive thrusts are transmitted along top line, and when top line of spinal column is horizontal, the dog should not work on lifting of the center of gravity, and that's why it's not tiring. That's why this principle is able to block rising of the croup when dog is on the move. The dog construction, according to this principle, which will be not overbuilt. But this principle cannot provide optimal meaning of the humeral scapula and coxofemoral articulations, angulations. Why? Because it is easy to understand that these two elements, upper arm and upper thigh, could be slanted differently, like this, like that, like that, like this. And sorry. And angulations, front and rear, will be different. However, we are looking for the optimal meanings of these angulations. And it will be provided by another postulate of two verticals. One more time. Elbow joint is under the top of withers, and knee joint or stifle is under the tail seat. In this case, elbow is set obliquely, and obliquely according to this vertical line. That's why this position of the upper arm, together with the shoulder blade, create best angulation in front. To move to slant upper arm further would be not the best, because in this case the front angulation will be acute instead of to be close to 90 degrees. 90 degrees angulation is the best. The same is happening with the hind legs, because normally when vertical line crosses crosses tail set and knee joint, the upper thigh is slanted forward so much that the angle between it and sciatic bone is close to 90 degrees. The same condition will provide the best function of the hip joint on the move, because here are located extensors, which are in charge of the push of the motive thrust, and correct angle, which is 90 degrees, will provide the best function. The same situation is concerning the iliac bone and the upper thigh of other hind leg, which is under the body, is not indicated here, but you can imagine. When another hind leg is under the body, then another upper thigh creates with the iliac bone angle of 90 degrees. And here are located flexors, which are in charge of bending hind legs. So these two vertical lines provide the optimal angulations either in front or in the rear. The next picture belonging to this postulate provides additional effect. As you can see, the elbow joint is exactly under the beginning of the top line, as well as the knee joint is exactly under the end of the top line. That's why we have two mobile supports of the top line, here and here. And because of this mobile support, the disturbances arising from the jumping and falling are additionally softened at this level, which can help the spinal column to maintain horizontal position. These distances, as I told you already, are equal. Why? Also not difficult to understand. Let us imagine that the dog's construction is deprived of any limbs angulations, and they look like the legs of the chair, vertical. All four legs are vertical. In this case, the distance between legs from one side and the length of the body will be absolutely equal. But in reality, the dog's body is moved forward regarding front and rear legs. And if we think that it will be moved differently regarding front legs and rear legs, then it will lead to the front strides and the hind strides not equal. And only because the body is moved forward regarding front legs and rear legs on the same distance, the front stride or reach and the hind stride will be equal. And this is required conditions for the balanced movement. Otherwise, movement will be disbalanced. So, I gave the comments to all postulates, and now I would like to sum up this information before to go to the, as I promised, because of this model, judges could have universal reference points, which will help them to increase the objectivity of their judging, of their assessment. It's really, look, when they examine the top line and find the borders between anatomical divisions of the top line, they will find the end of the back and understand if it is the middle of the top line or no, as well as the iliac tuber is dividing the rest into two equal parts. Is it in the middle of the rest or no? So, easy. Also, very easy to understand if the elbow is under the withers and knee is under the tail set. Also, easy to see, and if necessary to check by the hands, if these joints belong to one horizontal line as well as the other couple belongs to another horizontal line. So, and for the breeders, this proportion is the basic proportion which will lead to perfect dog build. It will be illustrated and confirmed later on in the framework of the harmonic model. And for the majority of the breeds, elbow joint is located in the middle of the distance between withers and ground. So it is located in the middle of this distance. Also well known that for majority of the breeds, shoulder blade and upper arm are of equal length. That's why they are of equal contrary slants. And finally, of equal vertical projections. Vertical projections. And you will find out here the same ratio, 2, 1, 1. So for the breeders, it is the key for the harmony of the dog, which will be clear after we will consider the harmonic model. Why we will see harmonic model? Why it is not enough to have the biomechanical model? It is interesting that from the nature, people are talented from above to find out difference between beauty and ugly things. In our case, beautiful and ugly dogs. And they don't know anything about the beauty and its laws. Nevertheless, they are able to appreciate the beauty. How it could be? What is the reason? And the reason is that human eyes, are looking for the proportions that the eyes are in tuned in search of harmony. And my task was to find out these proportions, which was done. To this discovery, I used golden section. The golden section is the universal form building principle of harmony, which is well known from the ancient time. Very briefly, I will tell you now about this principle before to introduce you to the harmonic model. Golden section as the principle, as the universal principle of the harmony. Golden section was well known in ancient times. Ancient Egypt pyramids, ancient Greece, for example, Parthenon, ancient sculptures like Phidias, Renaissance time, and It was well known for the scientists. Kepler, according to which was done discovery how are placed the planets of the sunny system. Engineers, which they use them from that time to the modern time very successfully, which has been reflected in fantastic things like human blood pressure, which is normally according to the golden section. A lot of examples which are given in my book, Dog Confirmation and its Evaluation. If you are interested in this example and in detailed explanation of principle, which will be briefly set out now, you can find out this book in UK in Our Dogs by Vincent Hogan. And now about the golden section. In 16th century, Luca Pacioli, Italian monk, scientist, mathematician, wrote the book named La Proportia Divina, or Divine Proportion, or proportion given by God. And Leonardo da Vinci was the illustrator of this book. But Leonardo da Vinci renamed this principle and gave the name golden section, or sectio aureo. And namely this definition is well known for us. 4 centuries before was lived another mathematician, also Leonardo. He was from Pisa, Leonardo Fibonacci, who built famous sequence. I will tell you about it a little bit later on, but there are the names which are closely connected to this principle. And now I go to the to the precise definition of this principle. Euclid, who lived 3 centuries before Christ, gave the definition of the extreme and mean ratio of the segment O1, which is divided by point x according to the extreme and mean ratio if the whole segment length 1, it is 1. To its biggest part, x, this is x, is the same as the biggest part, x, this is x. To its smallest part, 1 minus x, this is here. This proportion could be easily transformed to the square equation, and its positive root is in front of you. Square root from 5 minus 1, everything divided to 2. If I will calculate it in the third approximation, I will find out this number. More roughly, it will look like this, and the most rough approximation will be 0.6 or 3 to 5. And in our researches, we will use this number. Doesn't matter that it is the only rough approximation of the golden section meaning, but we are measuring the dogs and we are doing measuring mistakes which exceed the so-called tail. I will neglect here and leave only 0.6. So it will be enough for our conversation, measurements, and conclusions. About Fibonacci. Leonardo Fibonacci solved the problem which was absolutely far away from our subject. But anyway, he found the sequence which became famous worldwide. It is very easily built. 1, 1, 2. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 2 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. 3 plus 5 is 8, and on. If I modify this sequence to this one, this is 1, and this is 2, and I will divide each previous member, Fibonacci member, to the next one, I will find out 1, 1 second, 2 thirds, 3 fifths, 5 eighths, 8 13ths, and on. And the limit of this sequence will be the same number, golden section. So each member of Fibonacci sequence could be considered as the rough approximation of the golden section. And you can immediately find out the same number which we agreed to use instead of the precise number. But there is extremely important discovery. I would say that this is the moment of truth. Please take a look at the 3 first initial members of Fibonacci sequence, 1, 1, 2, and try to consider them in the reverse way, 2, 1, 1. And you will immediately find out the proportions of the top line of the dog. Think about it, please. That means that these 2 numbers for the dog construction are the base of its harmony, because it is the initial rough tuning to the golden section, because without these numbers, the golden section will be not reached. So the perfect body could not be reached if we ignore this proportion along the top line and also along the vertical line I mentioned short time ago. I have to emphasize that everything I'm setting on is concerning the majority of the breeds. There are some exceptions, of course, but the East European Shepherd Dog or Veo do not belong to these exceptions. It belongs to the majority, and everything which will be considered today will use in complete, in full volume of all postulates, of all proportions, and of everything. Now, I'm ready to tell you about these proportions, that the human eye is tuned in search of harmony. The first harmonious proportion, depth of the chest to the length of the top line, is golden section. I can suggest you to take a screenshot to measure and calculate, and you will be convinced that everything I'm saying will be confirmed when you will finish your calculations. The length of the chest to the length of the body is golden section. I would like to direct your attention one more time that the length of the body as well as the length of the chest I am measuring from the sternum, not from the shoulder joint or humerus scapula. I have to repeat and one more time emphasize that otherwise the part of the chest which is in front of the humerus scapula will be lost, and at the same time this part is the part of the chest and part of the body. Try to remember Euclid definition of the golden section principle. This is a segment O1. This is its biggest part, and this is its smallest part. And you can repeat by yourself everything which was already formulated. The length of the body to the length of the diameter is golden section. What does it mean, diameter? You can see in front of you line connecting the occiput and paw of the hind leg placed behind to the vertical rear pasta. But in reality, these points, occiput and this paw of the hind leg, do not belong in one vertical plane parallel to the longitudinal axis of the body. So it should be considered the projection of this blue line to the mentioned vertical plane. Height at elbows, I emphasize, elbow joint, not elbow ulna. Height at the elbow joint to the sum of length, head and neck is golden section. Later on, when we will consider dog on the move, when dog is trotting, I will come back to this principle and explain from another perspective. Here you can see these blue ovals. This is the girth of the muzzle, and this is the girth of the skull. And the ratio is golden section. Why? Let me give you one example. One of the best examples illustrating the golden section principle is the egg. You remember that the Fabergé used the egg because in his opinion the egg shape was perfect and the egg was the symbol of perfection. But not only beauty of the shape is important, no less important is the function. And what is the function? Try to squeeze the egg in your hand evenly. It will be practically impossible to destroy it. So high is durability of this construction. And this is the influence of the golden section, which means that the constructions built according to the golden section principle are beautiful and have the optimal functions. And here is the best example of that, because in this case, when this is 3 to 5, the bite is most powerful. And if we are looking for the breeds with an extremely powerful bite like Bull Terrier or Borzoi, you will find out immediately the egg shape of the heads. which is not accidentally. So, coming back to the very beginning, I promised you to find the explanation and proof of this proportion, and this is done. Now you understand that this ratio is the basic requirement for the initial tuning to the perfection, initial tuning to the golden section, along the top line and along the vertical line for the majority of the breeds, with some exceptions, not considered today. So, for the breeders, this is the key for their selection. It is not necessary to build the breeding strategy on the special way, how to find out all the harmonious proportions. The harmonious proportions will appear automatically if the dogs you are looking, you are selecting, you are choosing for the breed will be built according to this ratio, here and here. Because this is the, I have to repeat, the initial tuning to the golden section. And all harmonious proportions will appear automatically. And this is the selective algorithm. Now, I am ready to go to the breed standard and its history for the beginning. You can see the dog on the move. This is a trotting dog. Typical gait for the view. It looks nicely, but why? How could we qualify that quality? How could we analyze the principles which provide sound movement, at least side sound movement? Let us look in the beginning for the front and the rear skeleton. And this is what is inside, here and here. Now, next step, when we will use the knowledge according to the model approach. Let us analyze the picture in front of us. The top line is strong and the spinal column is practically horizontal. Top line is solid without any break. Spinal column is also almost horizontal. The front stride and hind stride are equal in the length. The swing of the limbs matches this criterion on of 90 degrees angle. So the limbs being in span or swing are inscribed in this right angle, which sides define boundaries of this swing. The yellow line from the eye and the paw of the front leg close to the moment of landing is vertical. What does it mean? You remember that vestibular apparatus is located in the ear. And this criterion provides equilibrium slightly in advance to the moment of landing. The green lines are parallel and they are a reason for the horizontal position of the spinal column. So now we can explain why this movement is correct and sound. Okay. Sorry that I forgot about this movement, but fortunately it was found and I explained what is happening when dog is trotting. In front of you, you can see beautiful specimen of the modern Veo. This is the dog who was my best dog at the Jubilee National Specialty 2017. But the history was long, and this shape was created many decades after its creation in principle. The initial ancestors of Veo was the German Shepherd. German Shepherds were imported to Russia in 1904, imported into Russian Empire. In the beginning, they were used as sanitary dogs. Excellent working qualities of these dogs were assessed quite quickly, and domestic cynologists found a wide range of functions for them, from working on elk farms to use in the police. Also, dog breeders, amateurs, began to keep them. In 1905 to 1915, the police and services of the Russian Empire widely used German Shepherds, although they were local like coyotes and even hunting breeds there, because the number of the German Shepherds was not big enough. You can see in front of you illustration of that time. It is quite possible that the main working breeds in Russia in 20th century would have been dogs of foreign origin, German and Scottish Shepherds, Dobermans and Airedales. But in 1917 a revolution happened. It was followed by devastation and chaos of the Civil War. The events of 1917 to 1920 or even 21 badly damaged native blood dog breeding. Many breeds were lost. The gene pool of remained ones was in a very poor state. For example, there were only 18 dogs in the tracking dog service, former police, which became the People's Militia Kennel. Before the revolution, there were several hundreds. Nevertheless, the need for working dogs in the young Soviet Republic, thrown by civil war, was very urgent. Criminality, army and customs, and finally border service that needed a lot of dogs to the vast lengths of the land borders of the country. In 1921, Vsevolod Yazykov, who headed the former police kennel of detective dogs after the revolution, submitted a project to organize a central kennel and school of working dogs. In 1924, it was finished in creating a birthplace of new native dog breeding, central educational and experimental kennel, school of military and sporting dogs, later Central Military Technical Dog Breeding School, RKKA. This kennel school became a leading center for the purebred dogs, breeding, training, and use of working dogs in Soviet Russia. The kennel made to collect both purebred dogs and mixes suitable for services. As the task of replenishing domestic services with suitable dogs capable of working in different climate conditions, from the Central Asian deserts to the polar tundra, was very urgent. And the main criteria was interested the employees of state canine services in selection, where physical and working quality of the dog's endurance and climate adaptability, but not so much their origin. German Shepherd proved to be good before the revolution. To some extent, it met these requirements, but purebred dogs were not enough. And in the northern regions of our country, the breed did not always demonstrate sufficient ability to adapt. There were already thousands of such dogs across the country, although many of them were traditionally and due to exterior similarity referred to German Shepherds. Descriptions of the domestic German Shepherds made by Alexander Mazover in 1935 reflect a difference from original German Shepherd dogs, and it is larger, stronger, more high-legged. It has different head shape and expression. The Great Patriotic War, 1945, didn't pass traceless for native dogs breeding. There were more than 40,000 working dogs in the armed forces. Many dogs died. Together with the purebred dogs, they widely used mixes capable for service. In the post-war years, there was an active restoration of the domestic working dogs population. The question about recognition of the native shepherds as a separate breeds arouses. Alexander Mazover, in his book Selection Business in Working Dog Breeding, publishing 1958, writes, correct measurement in breeding sheepdogs began in 1924, incorporate schools, kennels, and by amateurs. Over the past 2.5 decades, corporate kennels and public organizations have carried out great selective work to improve and perfect German Shepherd's constitutional features, appearance, and working qualities. This breed has changed dramatically in the result. Dogs have become larger according to the German standard, well adapted to the specific conditions of use. Serious differences revealed as the result of long purposeful culture of the breed by state kennels and working dog breeding clubs give us the right to call it is Eastern European Shepherd. Small break. At the end of the Second World War, in Soviet Union, the ideology of government and in general of all Soviet population was against the German influence. And in dogs breeding, this ideology was similar. That's why it was given the order at the end of 40s to create native breeds. And in this case of the VEO, this was quite ready to rename the breed, which changed a lot regarding the initial type, and already named many times in the catalogs as the German Shepherd of the East European type. It was the time to recall this breed. Now, I continue to read. In 1950, the breed was called Eastern European Shepherd, VEO, in the USSR. The breed was shown at the Eastern European Shepherd at the 14th Moscow City Kennel Club Dog Show Dosarm in Moscow on September 1950, and on September 55, deputy chairman of DOSAAF, which was half military organization umbrella of the Working Dogs Federation, Central Committee improved the standard of the Eastern European Shepherd. A vast contribution to the breed selection was made by well-known Soviet sinologists, Mazover, Shar, Neunilova, and many others. They selected best stud dogs at the dog shows, stud inspections, training competitions. The post-war period was characterized exclusively by planned and systematic breeding. All that was left of the pre-war period was used. Small lines and families were restored. New ones were created. Breeding of the East European Shepherd was conducted on its own separately, without any contact with the foreign specialists. In 1964, Presidium of the Working Dog Breeding Federation approved a new standard. Einlein-Körung, adopted in Germany, domestic sheepdogs were evaluated on a complex assessment, boditation. In January 1964, Presidium of the Working Dog Federation of the USSR approved a new standard edition. New amendments to the standard and new standard editions were made in 1970, 1972, 1976. In 1982, harder judging requirements were adopted for all working breeds in case of lack of specific teeth. Sorry. During further work on the breed, breeders received several main lines. Almost all modern lines, all modern dogs start their pedigree from them. Thus, competent and systematic work with the breed for the several decades was set. A systematic, extensive breeding base was established. It represented a sufficient number of quality livestock, ensuring the preservation of population diversity in order to further breed development. The breed became widespread in the USSR, and being really versatile was used very widely, from shepherds and guard service to guide dogs for the blind training. In 1993, the Ministry of the Culture of the Russian Federation added VEO to the State Register of Selection Achievements, admitted to use as a service, guard search breed of dogs. In 1991, Russian Federation becomes a legal successor of the USSR. Russian Kinological Federation was formed in the same year. On November 2002, the RKF Standard Commission recognizes the breed VO and approves its standard. In 2014, RKF Presidium adopts the new standard edition. Behavior specifics and character have allowed the VO to become not only the most demanded working breed in the USSR national economy, but to maintain popularity and remain the best guard and companion for a wide range of lovers, both in Russia and in many countries of the world. RKF holds the All Russia Unified Stud Book of the Eastern European Shepherds. It registers more than 10,000 puppies only in 2019. And during the last 10 years, it has registered more than 62,000 VO dogs. Breed lovers organizations hold big shows. Many of them are prestigious and numerous. More than 150 dogs take part at such events. Training activity with the East European Shepherds is massive. More than 40,000 dogs of the breed have successfully passed various standards for service and shepherd training in the latest 10 years. VO participate in display shows in many festive and sporting events. The Eastern European Shepherd today continues its further development as a result of the long time and systematic work of cynologists, judges, and enthusiasts. We managed to gain recognition of Eastern European Shepherd as a completely independent modern breed both in Russia and abroad. Eastern European Shepherd, though, is our breeding and cultural heritage. It takes its honorable place among the most popular modern working breeds in the world. Now, please let me demonstrate you some pictures. Look at these pictures. This is the typical, this one and this one, a typical specimen of 20th century German Shepherds. These dogs were imported to Russia in the 20s since 1924 several times from Germany. These dogs were bigger, more light-colored than their relatives in Germany, because in Germany they were concentrated on the dogs smaller in the size, not so tall like this. So the tall dogs and more light-colored dogs, according to some researchers, were imported to Russia. And it was quite correct regarding the ideology of the heads of this breed in Russia, because we needed taller dogs, more massive dogs. You can compare this dog and this dog. This dog was typical for the German time, for Germany, for dogs imported to Russia, and this dog was born in Russia. Also, very typical German dogs. But even in Germany, Max von Stefanitz father of this breed, was looking for another type, and this is an example of the type with the best qualities of the German Shepherd of that period. This bitch named Stella von House Shooting was a world champion. In Soviet Russia, they cultivated dogs like this. This dog was dog number 1 in the stud book. His name was Abrek. And this dog, Abrek, this was Karo. He was Soviet winner 1940. You can see the type is already changed. And this is the type. This is, yes, it was the dog of the period before the Second World War. Mm-hmm. Also, you can find here features which are quite typical for the modern specimen of a Veo. Now you can see the dog. His name was Corsar. He was born after the Second World War. Was famous dog. This is mine, also one of the leaders of the Leningrad population of Bear after the Second World War. I have to notice that these dogs were saved in Leningrad despite the blockade, not themselves, but their parents and grandparents, because of the military kennels where dogs were feeding like soldiers. And that's why it was possible to save this population. In Leningrad, it was a very special case. And as the best example, it was the show held in 1945, when it was shown 126 German Shepherd of the East European type. I have to add that beside the regular classes, it was also utility class for the dogs with the unknown origin and not so well developed qualities, which were in focus of the breeding strategy. And in this utility class was entered about 20% of this number 126. So you can imagine how these dogs could be in existing after the war, after the blockade of Leningrad. The breeders were not only enthusiasts, they were heroes to save and to develop the breed in these dramatic, tragical conditions. And the representative of the Moscow population was, and you can see this is the best dog of the 60s and 70s reign. You can understand what way was behind this dog and how talented were the breeders to create this dog construction. This dog looks absolutely modern, even in the comparison with the dogs of nowadays. So, and it was the way of a typical specimen, and at the end of the standard, when the requirements of the standards will be analyzed, we will see a lot of pictures of the modern European, East European shepherds, modern view. And keep in your mind this image, rain. Aлясов was its owner. So, try to remember all the way from the beginning. You saw the photos and you can see the result. And this dog represents absolutely different construction than the German Shepherd dog. Everything was mentioned regarding its specific, it's presented. It's a big, massive, rather high-legged dogs. Its build is very sound without any exaggerations, either in the body or in top line and angulations. Okay, now it's time to go to the standard, but I will ask for the short break before that. Mm-hmm. Okay, general appearance. Veo is strongly built, over medium-sized, rectangular in outline, strong-boned and well-muscled. Sexual dimorphism is well pronounced. Males are larger and more massive than females. The term rectangular is very often used in the modern descriptions in many breeds. And this description is not is also atypical, is not exception. But you have to keep in your mind this word is doesn't reflect the real proportions of the dog, because rectangular shape could be quite different. Very long-bodied dog, moderately long-bodied, long-bodied, slightly long-bodied, square-bodied. So the Veo is moderately long-bodied dog. This is reflected in the numbers, because in the important proportions it is noticed that length of the body exceeds the height at withers by 10 to 18%. Length of the head is about 40% of the height at withers. Typical proportion for many breeds. Just a moment. The height at elbows is equal or slightly superior to half of the height at the withers. One more time, what is exactly noticed here. If we measure the height at elbows at the level of ulna, in this case, the height at elbows will just a little exceeds the depth of the chest. If we measure at the sorry at the level of elbow joint, it will be exactly the middle, because the golden section is not cancelled, and 2:1:1 proportion is given to this construction. Behavior temperament. Leo is a balanced, active, self-confident, attentive, easy in training dog, reliable guard and companion, head wedge-shaped in proportion to the body, dry of good volume but not coarse. We will look at the head from the side. We will look at the profile of the head. Then I will ask for dog head in front. But now profile. Cranial region, plain, moderately broad and deep, tapering slightly to the muzzle. Occiput is slightly pronounced. Forehead is almost flat. Superciliary arches are moderately pronounced. In profile, the lines of the skull and muzzle are parallel. Muzzle and skull, bridge of the nose and the forehead should be parallel. Stop of medium length, moderately pronounced. Facial region, nose big, black. Muzzle wedge-shaped, gradually tapering to the nose, but should not be pointed. The length is approximately equal to the half of the length of the head, or a little less. Nose bridge is wide, straight, or a little Roman nose. Lips, lean, closely fitting, black. Jaws, teeth. Upper and lower jaws are well developed, with good pigmentation of gums. Teeth are strong, wide, set close to each other and complete, according to the dental formula. Scissor bite. Incisors are set in line and square to the jaws. Cheeks, slightly rounded, not prominent. Cheeks slightly rounded. Eyes, medium-sized, slightly oblique, somewhat slanted, should be dark brown, as dark as possible. Eyelids lean, close-fitting, black. Eye expression is lively, intelligent, and alert. Something to be explained more precisely. First of all, slightly oblique and somewhat slated. The sense is the same. And this is the semantic repetition. As dark as possible. This is extremely important, as pigmentation in all senses. Because I believe you remember that the pigment and nervous cells are located in the same embryonic membranes, and selections directed to the good pigmentation is indirect selection to the strong nervous system. Yes, medium-sized, erect, set high, in the shape of isosceles triangle. Ears are parallel to each other when alert. Neck of medium length, muscular, strong and dry, set at approximately 45 degrees. Yes, you can see length of the head and length of the neck are practically equal. This is the definition of the medium length of the neck. Body, solid, proportionally built, corresponding to a moderately long form. Moderately long form. Top line, very smooth, straight from withers and slightly falling at croup to the base of the tail. Withers, well pronounced, moderately long. Back, strong, muscular, straight, long. Back, loin, short, muscular, and slightly arched. Croup, broad, long, muscular, slightly sloping, smoothly descending towards the base of the tail. Straight. This is a description of the back. Straight doesn't mean level. The whole top line is slightly sloping from the withers to the tail set. And what does it mean? Long back and short loin. We know the answer. The proportions in between is 2:1. And the definition of the croup, which should be long, doesn't contradict the short sacrum, because sacrum is the only upper part of croup, and the length of the croup is mostly defined by the length of the sciatic bones. So this demands short sacrum and long croup are not contradictive. Chest well developed, long and deep, reaches to the elbows or lower, oval shaped with a moderately sprung ribs. Well developed. Its developed is concerning depth and forechest. It is a cross section is oval because of the moderately sprung ribs, and it reaches to the elbow or slightly lower. Elbow is the elbow ulna. Slightly lower is located the elbow joint. But what we see in reality looks a little bit differently because of the coat and muscles which are located in this part. And you have to be careful looking at the height of elbow ulna and at the level of elbow joint. Underline and belly. Underline smooth, belly is reasonably tucked up. In line with the top line, sable shaped, of natural length, reach to the hocks or a bit lower. Thick at the base, hanging down. When alert and in action, it may carry straightened and ascended. Tail is evenly covered with a thick hair. Limbs. General appearance. Set moderately wide, straight and parallel when viewed from the side, from the front. Viewed from the side, Shoulder blade, long oblique. Upper arm, approximately equal to the shoulders in length oblique. Shoulder angulation is about 90-100 degrees. Elbow, directed strictly backwards, turned neither in nor out. Forearms, strong boned, straight and parallel. Pastern, strong, moderately long. Elastic, slightly oblique in profile. Forefeet, oval in shape, arched, tight. Pads and nails are of dark color. Hindquarters. General appearance, strong with a well-developed muscles. It's visible, especially in the region of the upper thigh. Seen from behind, parallel and sent moderately wide. In profile, moderately pulled back with well-pronounced angulations. I would say that moderately placed behind to the vertical rear pastern. Thigh of medium length, wide with well-developed muscles. Upper thigh, I mean. Stifle knee, strong with pronounced angulations. Lower thigh, moderately long, about the same length as the upper thigh. Hock joint, lean, strong, well angulated. Rear pastern, strong, moderately long, vertically set. Due clothes should be removed in the countries where it is not prohibited by the law. Hind feet, oval and shaped, arched, tight. Pads and nails are of dark color. You can see how does it look like from the outside now with the inside structure. Typical gait is long reaching trot with a strong push. Long reaching trot. The front stride is long and hind stride is of the same length. This requirement provides the balance of movement when dog is trotting. Movement are free, well covering the ground, balanced and sound. Straight movements on trot seen from the front and rear. At speed, legs tend to converge. It's quite typical for the trotting dogs. Skin, closely fitting, elastic and well pigmented. Coat, outer cover coat is straight, moderately harsh on touch, dense and closely fitting, of medium length, well-developed undercoat, thick and soft. Head, ears, the front side of the legs and feet are covered with a shorter coat. Coat on the neck is slightly longer and thicker. Coat on the back side of the forearms is a bit longer, and at the outer side of thighs, it is even longer and forms moderate trousers. Trousers. Color. Wolf. Wolf gray of different shades. Wolf red from light fawn to red. Bright red is not desirable. Saddle. Blackish or black-gray saddle with tanning of the right intensity from light fawn to red. Bright red tanning is not desirable. Black and tan. Black with tan markings of variant intensity from light fawn to red. Bright red tan markings are not desirable. Whole black may be with black, gray, or fawn undercoat. Small white markings on the chest allowed, but not desired. Size, height at withers. Desirable height for males, 67 to 72. For females, 62 to 68. In case the harmony in conformation is provided, slight deviation up to 2 centimeters from standard height should not be regarded as a case to lower the qualification. Faults, nothing about it. Severe faults, unsure behavior, deviations from sexual types, light, coarse, or loose construction, weak muscles, square or too long in format, dampish, massive head with domed too wide skull, round, protruding, too big, too light eyes, absence of P1 and M3, convex or down-faced muzzle, partially depigmented nose, weak soft ears, floppy one or both ears, low set, spreading out ears, narrow loin. Should stop on this point. I have to remind you that for the dogs, the loin construction is difficult than by horses because the transversal let me remember this term. Transversal processes are not so wide like by horses. And wide loin in the dogs could be provided by well-developed muscles because it's the only way to withstand the wobbling of the croup. That's why the narrow loin is to be considered as the severe fault. Short, straight, or sunken croup. I would prefer to say to falling away croup. Sickle, corkscrew tail, weak ligaments, cabrial limbs, too straight or too pronounced angulations, sickle hock, unbalanced movement, the dog turns to pace too often. Disqualifying faults. Aggressive or overly shy dogs, any dog clearly showing physical or behavioral abnormalities, untypical specimen, height for males less than 65 and more than 74, and for females less than 60 and more than 70. Absence of any tooth except P1 or M3. Any departure from scissor bite. Entropy, ectropy, one or both ears hanging. Any color, any eye color, any pigmentation of nose, lips, of eyelids not described by the standard are disqualifying faults. Tail making the wheel too short, kinked, fused vertebra, bobtail, unsteady, overlapping, rolling movement, constant pacing, curly coat, long or short coat, absence of undercoat. And as usually nota bene, male animals should have 2 apparently normal testicles, fully descended into scrotum, and only functionally and clinically healthy dogs with typical conformation should be used for breeding. This is the standard. One more time. The modern view, the modern East European Shepherd dog, is a dog of a rectangular body, as it is described in the standard, which could be explained as the dog with a moderately long body. Moderately long-bodied dog. The outlines are deprived of any exaggerations. Either we consider the top line or angulations. Everything should present the very sound construction. And this is very typical for the East German Shepherd, which differs him from the German Shepherd. I will not repeat about the size, you remember that, but the type and the outlines and the movement are different, as well as the colors. You remember that a bright red is not desirable in this breed. More typical is light coloring dog. And this kind of color is very typical. Okay. The standard is considered, and we can go to the pictures to look at them and to analyze them in the comparison with the provisions of the standard. Look at this bitch. She's long-bodied, which is quite typical for the bitch. The bitches are usually longer in the body than the males, and this is not because of the loin. The ratio of the anatomical divisions of the top line are the same. 2 for the back, it is the middle of the top line, 1 for the loin, and 1 for the sacrum. But the length is resulted by 2 things. First of all, croup is longer because of the... No, оставьте, пожалуйста. Croup is longer because of the lengthening of the sciatic bones adapted for the whelping, which is the main function of the bitch. And to provide correct ratio between chest part and the rest, the chest is more prominent in front. The forechest is more developed. That's why these proportions remains the same, 3 to 5, but length of the body is more because of these 2 phenomena, here and here. So this is a long-bodied feminine bitch with nice outlines and the correct angulations. Feminine head is a little bit too small. And even the dog is light colored. Look at the color of the eyes and pigmentation of the eye rims and lips. And of course, nose. Nice bitch, nice feminine bitch. Let's go on. Here we can see 2 males. Moderately long-bodied, strong, deep-chested male with a solid body, with a masculine head, a bit too much stop, a bit too rounded forehead, nice neck and top line, excellent developed chest and forechest, correct front angulation, and needs better rear angulation, as you can see. In this case, long-bodied dog with a solid body, deep-chested, quite strong in bones, with a nice head and expression, very typical for the breed. Correct angulations in front and rear, a little bit too soft pasterns. Typical color. This is the dog you saw in the beginning. This was my winning dog, was the best male at the national specialty, Jubilee national specialty, the paragon of the breed. Two long-bodied dog, bodies nevertheless solid with a good depth, quite good developed bones. Head is a little bit turned away and looks a little bit too small regarding the whole dog. Nice neck, nice top line, correct angulations. Two things which could be better. Could be a bit shorter and head should be larger. Typical color. Also very nice dog. Medium long bodied. Excellent depth of the body. Excellent outlines. Correct angulations both. Nice head profile, nice head shape and size. Very handsome dog. Long-bodied male with a solid body, correct depth of the body, good developed bones, head should be larger, and ears could be better directed. They are a little bit directed sidewards. But anyway, except the head size, everything is very nice. Typical color. This was the bitch, my best of breed at the national specialty. Gorgeous bitch. Moderately long-bodied. Solid body, very compact. You can use this shadow and understand where is located the last rib. This is the point of the last rib. This is the middle of the top line, which means the back is exactly half of the top line. And this is the iliac tuber. This is the 1/4. This is 1/4. So it's not surprisingly that the top line is absolutely solid without any interruption. Correct depth of the body, excellent angulations, both correct without any exaggerations, strong in bones, nice, long, strong head, typical color. Beautiful bitch. This is the male, long-bodied, quite strong in bones. Difficult to say about the vertical proportions exactly because of the grass. Looks a little bit short-legged, but probably this is a mistake of our visual impression. Nice outlines, well-developed chest and forechest, correct angulations both. Head should be larger and stronger. Nice young dog, medium long-bodied, deep enough in the body, strong enough in bones, nice in outlines and angulations, both front and rear. Head is large and strong enough. Young dog. beautiful dog. Moderately long-bodied, with an excellent depth of the body, strong in bones, excellent outlines, nice masculine head. I can only say bravo for its quality and excellent pigmentation. Long-bodied male with a solid body, correct depth of the body, correct developed bones, should be more brave, should carry higher the neck, head is a bit too small, and about the angulations is difficult to say exactly because we see not exactly dog in profile. Rare angulations are quite okay. Maybe needs a little bit better angulation in front because of the upper arm, which could be a bit longer and more oblique. And the result that you use for the qualification of the front angulation is a criterion the elbow should be exactly under the withers. It is almost like that. Very nice head. This is an old dog, it's visible. But anyway, excellent expression and shape of the head is beautiful, as well as the ears, how they set and carried. This is the female, too rounded over skull. Under jaw should be stronger, two wet lips at the corners. Yes, correct. And difficult to say about the pigmentation of the eye rims. How are they? Because of the color transmission. But here is absolutely correct, and here is enough, according to what we see. Also very nice head, typical expression, full of dignity. This is a head too wide in the skull, too wide in cheeks. Muzzle is a bit too short. Yes, correct set and carried, dark eyes, excellent pigmentation of the eye rims, lips, and nose. Also, nice head. 3/4 is the different and difficult to evaluate exactly, but in general, this is a nice expression. Also a very nice head. You can see many times the same expression. Here we can see another shape, a bit too rounded forehead and Roman nose. Difficult to say how strong is the underjaw because the mouth is open, but pigmentation is okay. Eye rims, nose, and lips. Okay. Dog on the move. Look at the movement. Quite okay top line. Let us be not so strict to the shape of the top line because we cannot check exactly if it is resulted by the coat or no, or it is a slight depression. It could be. Excellent depth of the chest, correct body length regarding the height at the withers. The moment is not the best to evaluate exactly what we see because of the criterion you remember. The vertical line from the eye should be at the paw of the foreleg close for the moment of landing. It is not close for that moment, so we will not use it. Here is better moment to evaluate. The hind leg is under the center of gravity, which lies at the point of intersection between two oblique lines forming the pendulum, you remember. Nice top line, correct tail shape when dog is on the move, correct depth of the body, correct span or swing of limbs, and the final criterion, vertical line connects the eye and the paw of the front leg at the moment of landing. What else?
Все, Евгений Львович. This one was the last one, so we finished.
We considered all the pictures.
All the pictures.
Yes. Should you have any questions, I will be glad to give my answers. So please use this moment and let us clarify everything you are looking for.
Я не вижу вопросов.
I also don't see any questions.
And then we can announce the next breed and say goodbye for today. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I don't see you now. You disappear because
No,
I clicked wrong. Yes.
Claudio is asking that many times we can see too long in body. Because some of them are too long in body.
One more time, please.
Claudio is writing, many times we can see too long in body.
But please come back to the standard. 110 to 118. And this is quite okay for the view. Some dogs are shorter, some dogs are longer. And if it matches these limits, it's okay. I have to repeat that it is lengthening is more typical for the bitches. What else?
Nothing more, I think. So we can announce for next Tuesday. It will be, as far as I understand, Russian hunting spaniel. Yeah.
Yes.
And thank you everybody to your attention.
Okay. Thank you very much for your interest in our native breeds. And I believe that this beautiful breed, which was breed #1 in the Soviet Union in that time, will become full recognition in the FCI, not in the long time. And I hope to be witness of that. Thank you very much, and see you next time.